Jon David Markwell was born in 1972 in Lansing, Michigan. He grew up in a modest home on the East Side, the son of a middle school teacher and a postal worker. People who knew Jon in his youth described him as clever, confident, and a little too smooth for his own good. He graduated from Lansing Eastern High with decent grades, played second base on the varsity baseball team, and went on to attend community college for business administration. Nothing about his early years suggested anything sinister. By 2003, he had built a respectable life. Married to a woman named Linda, fathered 2 children, and owner of a small mortgage consulting firm. His business, Safe Path Lending, promised low-income families affordable refinance options and foreclosure prevention, a godsend for many in the wake of the 2008 housing collapse. But there was a catch. Between 2014 and 2017, more than 50 clients accused Jon of fraud. They claimed he took their upfront fees, sometimes up to $8,000 per family, but never processed any loans. Many were left worse off, losing their homes, credit, and savings. He targeted the vulnerable, elderly homeowners, immigrants with limited English, single mothers in distress. The paper trail revealed doctored bank statements, forged signatures, and shell accounts funneling funds to private wallets. In late 2017, Jon was arrested following a federal audit triggered by multiple civil complaints. He was charged with 18 counts of felony fraud, wire fraud, and intent to deceive a financial institution. The total estimated losses, $847,000. Yet despite the scope of the case, Jon was granted pretrial release under strict bond conditions. He surrendered his passport, agreed to home check-ins, and appeared to comply. On March 11, 2019, Jon David Markwell arrived at the Kent County Courthouse for his sentencing. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, and carried a black overcoat folded across one arm. His attorney walked beside him. In the gallery were 3 of his former victims. An elderly couple from Grand Rapids, a single mother of 3. Their hands trembled as the court read the final restitution figures. Inside the courtroom, everything was calm, routine. The judge read out each charge and its corresponding sentence. 8 years in state prison. Eligible for parole in 5. Jon nodded. He didn't blink. He didn't protest. He didn't even look surprised. The judge stood to close the session. A court officer stepped to the side, assuming Markwell would be escorted. But instead, Jon simply stood up, turned around, and walked out the courtroom doors. No one moved. Not the judge. Not the bailiff. Not even his own lawyer. It was as if everyone assumed someone else would stop him. At 11:49 a.m., Jon exited the courthouse lobby and walked down the marble steps into the open air. Cameras caught him heading east on Ottawa Avenue, calmly blending into the lunchtime foot traffic. 35 minutes later, a clerk in the holding wing realized he hadn't checked in. By the time a deputy was sent to retrieve him, he was gone. A BOLO alert was issued. By 1 p.m. state police were notified, patrols dispatched. But it was too late. Jon Markwell had disappeared. Not just from the courthouse, but from the grid entirely. When officers searched his apartment later that evening, they found the place meticulously cleaned. No electronics. No hard drives. No notes. His phone had been left on the kitchen table, wiped. But in the trash, buried beneath 2-day-old takeout, was a crumpled receipt from a used car dealer 2 towns over, dated 3 days before sentencing. Paid in full. Cash. The VIN number led to a forest green 2005 Dodge Caravan. The buyer had used the name Michael Davies. Security footage from the lot showed Jon, sunglasses, bald cap, fake mustache. He shook hands with the seller, climbed into the van, and vanished into the Michigan interstate system. What no one knew at the time, what they couldn't possibly have known, was that Jon's escape hadn't just started at the courthouse. He had been planning it for months, and someone had helped him. The manhunt began that same night. By midnight, Jon David Markwell's face was on every police computer across Michigan. An active warrant was issued for felony escape. His original fraud charges were now paired with a new one, evading justice. U.S. Marshals joined the case within 48 hours. Agents tracked his last known location to I-96 heading west toward Chicago. Toll booth cameras in Indiana picked up the Dodge Caravan 2 days later. No plates, covered in dust, just outside Fort Wayne. By the time troopers arrived, the van was abandoned behind a closed gas station. Inside were crumbs from protein bars, an empty duffel bag, and a torn-up Michigan driver's license under the name Michael Davies. But no sign of Jon. They canvassed bus stations, airports, truck stops. Nothing. Not even a fake ID hit. He'd cut off all digital ties. No phone, no credit cards, no social media presence. Investigators realized Jon Markwell didn't just disappear. He erased himself. What little trail he left was odd, like he wanted them to know just enough. At a Greyhound station in St. Louis, a man matching his bill bought a ticket to Flagstaff, Arizona. Paid in cash. Used the name John Davis. Surveillance footage showed him wearing construction clothes. Hair buzzed short. But when officers raided the motel near Flagstaff 3 days later, they were too late. Room 109 was empty. Only a half-smoked cigarette in the ashtray and a bar of motel soap left behind. Then he went quiet. For nearly 5 years. No sightings. No arrests. No confirmed movement. The case went cold. In 2024, a quiet tip came from an unlikely source, a Canadian expat living in Hopkins Village, Belize. He claimed he recognized a man running a beachfront souvenir stand. So the guy introduced himself as Mark Johnson, sold wooden carvings and bracelets, and spoke perfect Midwestern English. The man kept to himself. No internet, no phone, paid cash, dated a local woman named Inez. Told neighbors he was a retired civil engineer from Ohio. What stood out wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. He never talked about family. Never drank with the locals. Never invited anyone over. The expat saw a wanted poster online, a faded FBI bulletin still floating around forums. He sent the tip to the U.S. Embassy. Interpol confirmed the location. Agents watched the man for 2 weeks. He always wore a hat, moved carefully, avoided cameras. Then came the match. A discarded water bottle from the souvenir stand was collected and tested for latent prints. The results were irrefutable. It was him. On May 3rd, 2024, at precisely 2:26 p.m., Jon David Markwell was arrested without incident as he locked up his shop for the day. When asked for his name, he reportedly smiled and said, "Took you long enough." Jon was extradited to the United States within 10 days. His capture made headlines across the country. But for the victims he defrauded and the justice system he escaped, it didn't feel like a victory. Not really. Inside the courtroom that summer, many of those same victims sat once again in silence. Some were older now, weaker, having spent years fighting to recover. When Jon was sentenced, this time for a total of 12 years without parole, he showed the same calm face he wore the day he walked out. No apology, no tears, no remorse. The courthouse security policies were overhauled statewide after his escape. Armed escorts became mandatory for all felony sentencings. Bond reviews tightened. Judges questioned how a man, convicted of stealing nearly $1 million, could walk out so easily. But the question that still lingers, the one no one has been able to answer, is how he got away with it for so long. Who helped him? Who forged his documents? Who taught him to vanish? Jon never said a word, and maybe he never will. The courthouse where Jon Markwell escaped is still in operation today. Every day, dozens of defendants are led through its doors in cuffs and chains, escorted, guarded, watched. But in quiet moments, some court officers still talk about the one that got away. Not because he overpowered anyone, not because he broke out violently, but because he didn't have to. He walked. 4 or 5 years, Jon Markwell lived a quiet life as someone else, while his victims struggled in the open, haunted by his lies. Margaret DeLuca lost her home after trusting Jon with a refinance. Her husband died before they could recover. She still lives with her daughter in a basement apartment in Dearborn Heights. He got to run away, she once said in a victim impact statement, while we stayed behind to clean up his wreckage. Some victims never got their money back. Others never got closure. A few, elderly, ill, didn't live long enough to see justice served. Jon Markwell's sentence came too late for them. But his story did more than wound. It exposed a system built on assumption. It revealed what happens when confidence is mistaken for compliance, when charisma covers up cold calculation, and, perhaps most chillingly, it showed how easy it can be, in the right moment, in plain sight, for a man to disappear. He didn't need a disguise. He didn't need a weapon. He just needed the door to be open and the system to look the other way. After his rearrest, psychologists who reviewed Jon Markwell's behavior described him as a classic manipulative narcissist with high-functioning sociopathy. He wasn't volatile. He didn't explode in court. He didn't resist. Instead, he watched, calculated, waited for cracks in the system. And when one opened, he slipped through like vapor. A former court officer later admitted in an internal report, he didn't act like someone who was just sentenced to prison. He acted like a man finishing a job. Over time, investigators uncovered pieces of his pre-escape plan. A second bank account in Missouri under an alias opened 8 months before sentencing. A fake passport likely forged through connections he made while consulting for shady private lenders in 2015. A burner phone purchased in cash and destroyed just hours after his sentencing. AU's van registered under a false name in a town 80 miles away. And most telling of all, a deleted draft in email recovered from an old Gmail account that simply read, "They won't see it coming. They never do." He never sent it. Linda Markwell, his wife of nearly 16 years, claimed to have no idea he was planning to flee. After his escape, she was questioned repeatedly and placed under surveillance for 6 months. Her accounts were frozen, her phone tapped. She was never charged, but rumors never stopped. She filed for divorce 2 years after the escape, changed her last name, and moved to a smaller town in Wisconsin with the children. Reporters tried to reach out after Jon's capture, but she declined all interviews, all except one. In a private letter later leaked to the press, Linda wrote, "The man I married was already gone long before he disappeared. I think maybe he always was." In Belize, investigators found a single notebook hidden under the floorboards of Jon's rented apartment. Its contents were strange. Dozens of names, most unknown, coordinates written in careful penmanship, a list titled, "If It All Fails." And at the very bottom of the final page, 3 words underlined twice. To this day, no one knows what that meant. Was he planning to run again? Did he have something even bigger in motion? Or was it just another game, a final seed of doubt planted in the minds of those who hunted him? Jon's case is now used in law enforcement seminars across the U.S. He is the subject of 2 documentaries, 3 criminal justice thesis papers, and an internal DOJ security memo titled The Markwell Loophole. Kent County restructured its courthouse procedures. Several employees were quietly reassigned. The judge who presided over the sentencing eventually retired. And every so often, during high-risk court proceedings in Michigan, you'll hear a deputy mutter to a rookie officer, "Don't Markwell this one." It's become slang. For a moment of failure. For when the system sleeps. For when justice walks out the door, calmly, quietly, and without a single person asking where he's going. 6 months after Jon Markwell's final sentencing, the world moved on. The story faded from headlines. His victims, while never truly healed, began to pick up the pieces. Law enforcement declared the case closed. But something strange happened in late October 2024. A retired U.S. Customs agent named Paul Hensley was hiking near the southern edge of Big Bend National Park in Texas, a remote desert stretch less than 50 miles from the Mexico border. He stumbled upon an old survival cache hidden beneath a cluster of rocks, a sealed plastic bin containing $4,000 in small, unmarked bills, 2 satellite phones, both unregistered, 3 passports, all fake, but professionally made, a single envelope marked MJ. Inside that envelope was a handwritten note. "Trust no one, not even them. If I'm caught, burn everything and vanish. There's still time." The handwriting matched the notebook found in Belize. But here's the twist. The cache was buried in 2017, 2 years before Jon escaped. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, just one partial smudge, enough to confirm it belonged to someone known only by their alias, DM A person still missing. Someone who, investigators now suspect, may have helped Jon disappear, and might have helped others before him. The FBI reopened an internal investigation, briefly considering whether Jon was part of a larger network, a quiet ring of white-collar fugitives helping each other vanish, escape justice, and resurface with new names. No arrests were made. The trail went cold again. But one thing still bothers the lead U.S. Marshal on the case. We caught Jon, but he never ran again. He didn't even try. He was done, like the job was finished, or someone told him to stop. I don't think Jon was the end of the story. I think he was just a chapter we were allowed to see,